Hi, I wanted to make a video that I'm going to post on the discussion board for the first discussion on the question I asked you about introducing yourselves and how you felt about the current state of political affairs going on in our nation, and how I wanted you to thoughtfully answer each other. And I have to say, I was a little disappointed. Actually, I was very disappointed in the way that you handled that. I'm also teaching a political science course, American Government, and I have to say that they handled that assignment much better than you guys did in the 202 class. Look, I'm only going to say a couple of things because I'm also going to attach a couple of documents with this video response. First, I want to make a statement about how you guys need to proceed in class on the discussion board. And that is that you need to respect one another. Part of what's going on in our country right now is that we don't respect each other. We don't respect each other's point of view. We don't respect each other's differences. And I want to speak on behalf of Terrell. Terrell is a student of mine, and I've taught Terrell. I taught Terrell in 201, and I know him. And a lot of you were very angry and jumped on him. And I know that Terrell spoke very harshly. And I know him, and I hear a lot of pain first in his voice, and then I hear a lot of anger. You all don't know that because maybe most of you don't know him. And also on the discussion boards, which is why I'm doing a video, we can be anonymous and we can start to troll one another after a while, and we can just let loose with our point of view because no one sees us, and we can say whatever we want to because, you know what, we can let it fly when we're online. But I don't want that in my class. The truth is, I want you guys to try and thoughtfully connect with one another. Use logic when you're addressing one another. Use compassion, because that has gone out the window in this nation, and we are merely emotionally speaking to one another, and it's got to stop. It has to. Terrell, I hear your pain. I hear the anger in your voice, and you know I care about you. You and I have had countless conversations in class and after class. I wish that we were in class right now, Terrell, so that we could speak about this. I wish all of us were together so that we could speak about this. I'm praying for you, and I care about you, and I wish I could make the pain go away, and I wish I could make your anger go away, but you know I can't. And you know only God Almighty can do that for you, and I can't say anymore. That's all I can say to you, is that I care about you, and only God Almighty can make that go away. And you know that. Now, I want to speak to those of you that are angry at the violence that's perpetrated against people of color by the police. I'm not going to quote statistics. I'm not going to do any of that stuff. All right? I want to tell you that I care about you, and that I wish, as I spoke to Terrell, that I could make the pain go away. And there are other people in this class that wish they could make the pain go away, but they can't and I can't, because it is only God that can heal that wound. No amount of people apologizing to you will ever heal the wound. No one. No people will heal that wound. No amount of money or society and what society does can heal those wounds. That is something only God Almighty can do. And that's why quoting statistics to you isn't going to change that. Okay? It isn't. That's why people on the other side don't try to do that right now to people that are hurting that way. Tell them you hear them and you hear their pain, okay? And when someone's angry, just tell them you hear that, okay? Sometimes maybe when someone's in a lot of pain, you just tell them you hear the pain, okay? And stop there. And now I want to speak to the other side and to those people that are in pain. And I need to speak to you now lovingly. And now I need to give you something. The people that may support Donald Trump, I need you to hear this, okay? Because I'm not telling you my politics. I need you to hear this. They're not Nazis, and not all the people that support him are not Nazis, and they're not racist. I know, but I got to say it. And the way some of you sounded on the discussion board in my 202 class, you were ready to throw every one of them into that category. And you cannot do that. I'm sorry, but I'm not going to let you do it in my class. You can't. You cannot. You have to understand something. People love this country. I've told you straight up, I love my country. I love John Adams, okay? He's my favorite founding father. Those of you that took my 201 class, you know that. You know I call him the Atlas of Independence. You know that he was never a slaveholder. You know that Abigail Adams' father owned slaves. He had about 4 or 5 of them. And you know the story that I told you, that her mom gave her a slave, and she was so incensed, she was an abolitionist because her dad was a preacher. And she could never reconcile it. She read her Bible. She read Philemon. She read the part where Paul sent Philemon back. The same book Southerners used to justify it. But Paul said to Philemon, said to his slave master, you need to accept him back now. Accept Philemon back now as your brother in Christ and no longer a slave. And he was set free. And he was a disciple, and he became a minister of the gospel because he was set free, because Paul sent him back. Abigail was given this slave, and she set the woman free. She was disgusted by it, but she took the woman and set the woman free. Okay? I have taught you that were in my 201 class about the founders. I told you there were a group of the founders that didn't own slaves. They were mostly from the Northeast. I told you about the group of founders led by George Washington that owned slaves, but they were silent about it, and he gave away his slaves, or he set them free when he died. And Martha when she passed away, all of them were given back pay, and Washington led by example, and he said, this is the way to end slavery in our country. Everyone should be emancipated upon the master's death, and these slaves should be given back pay. That's what he did. He didn't talk about it. He led by example. I talked to you about Ben Franklin, who sort of owned slaves when he was younger, and then he got rid of his slaves, and then he turned around and he led with the Quakers. The last thing he did before he died was that Ben Franklin put in a petition into the very first one. He and the Quakers, this was the last thing he did before he died, he put into the House of Representatives the first petition, the first bill to emancipate slaves. It didn't go anywhere, but he did this before he died. And then finally, there was the majority down south that are culpable men like Thomas Jefferson. And I didn't know this. I finally found another man who wrote a book, who's finally been teaching the way I've been teaching since I went on that Adams workshop back in 2010. And I told you this when you were in my 201 class. I told you that that woman looked at me. She was the curator of Monticello, and she looked at me and she said, obviously your problem with Thomas Jefferson is slavery. And I was like, shouldn't that be your problem with Thomas Jefferson? Because Thomas Jefferson swore up and down at the Continental Congress he was going to free his slaves when he died. But he couldn't. And I finally found a man. I'm going to put up a lecture by him. He wrote a book about it. He is held morally culpable. I'm not the only one. The man's house was sold away 3 years after he died. And I think I said this in class. Terrell, you know I did. Because the man never saw a book he didn't think he was entitled to own, a painting he didn't think he was entitled to own. His wine budget when he was president of the United States was larger than Washington and Adams' entertainment budgets combined together. Just his wine budget, because he wanted to entertain and drink and try everything. Our Library of Congress started because Jefferson was in debt so bad that he had to sell all those fancy books the first time, and that's how we got our Library of Congress. When you go, if you go to Washington, D.C., you will see the Jefferson collection. That's how our Library of Congress started. The first time he was bailed out by the federal government with his debt, he rang it up again. And 3 years after he died, his children had to sell Monticello and all of the slaves to get out of his debt. And the house went into ill repair for nearly 100 years until the state of Virginia bought it back, fixed it up so that it could be a heritage place for everyone to come and see. Not the Adams. That place was paid for by the Adams and given to Massachusetts because they were so cheap with their money. They believed in paying as they went. That was their life. Now, folks, this author, and I'm going to put up a video by him so that you can see it, holds him morally accountable because his words, all men are created equal, and his actions don't meet his words. But the point is, our country, founded on that principle, was true regardless of whether Thomas Jefferson lived up to it. We aspire to it, and we've been aspiring to it, and it's gotten better. The other thing I want to say to everybody else is that every nation around the world, at one time or another, except for the new ones that have been created since, had some form of slavery. And the idea that somehow we are supposed to be more evil than some other country in the world is poppycock. I'm sorry, but this is revisionist madness. It's revisionist madness. I'm saying it. We do not change the past or rewrite the past to create a new narrative. We change our future. And we have been changing our future, and we're continuing to change our future. Women were not seen as equal at the beginning, but now look at us today. Of course, slaves and black people were not seen as equal, but now we've had a black president. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? We now have a black woman on one of the major tickets to be vice president. Are you kidding me? And people are talking about systemic racism in our nation. Stop the madness. If there was systemic racism, Kamala Harris could not be on the Democratic ticket. Come on. Barack Obama would have never been elected president. Stop it. People, come on. Now, I'm saying that, and I'm saying that to say this. This is what the people, a lot of people that support Donald Trump are angry about. They're tired of people tearing up America. That's all I'm saying to you, okay? That's what I'm saying. I am a historian. I'm telling you. I'm old, people. I'll be 58 years old in November. Folks, I've seen it time and time again. Every freaking election, it's the same. The Democrats are Soviet Russia. The Republicans are Nazi Germany. And it's the apocalypse. It's every single election. I saw it with my dad. I see it now in the news media. It's getting worse because we got social platforms now. We got Twitter, we got Facebook, we got Instagram, we got the internet. It's just worse because it's in your face. And no one in the news media is no longer searching after facts. I'm sorry. Folks, it is as bad on the right as it is the left. And look, I told you this in my 201 class. In the election of 1800, all you had was newspapers. You were newspapers. You had the National Gazette and the Gazette of the United States. One was a Federalist newspaper, and the National Gazette was started by Thomas Jefferson. And you listen to me. Thomas Jefferson started it while he was Secretary of State, and he used taxpayers' dollars to start the National Gazette, and he hired an editor by the name of John Finot. And while he was running for president, he wasn't Secretary of State then, but he used taxpayer dollars to start this newspaper. He called John Adams in a newspaper, not him, but he got his friends to do it. Hermaphroditical, a hermaphrodite, a man-woman, a woman-man. Yes. Now, folks, in today's cancel culture, Thomas Jefferson, what? They would be drumming him off a ticket today. One of the reasons why Abigail Adams talked, my man, I love him so. into the Alien and Sedition Acts. And the Sedition Acts closed down newspapers. You talk about not having freedom of speech today and cancel culture. John, what were you thinking? Why did you listen to Abigail? He shut down newspapers, man. You didn't just get blocked on Twitter. He shut them down. Abigail talked to me because she was like, you are not a hermaphrodite. I know what's in them pants. She knew. She had 4 kids by him. She had a miscarriage, a miscarriage and another child that died. 6 children. She knew what was in them pants and what wasn't in them pants. Come on, y'all. Cancel culture has got to go. We can't say anything anymore. We can't. It's stupid. You got most of the violence that's being done in middle America is being done by upper middle class white kids that are going in and burning things on behalf of black people. Are you kidding me? They have never been down for the struggle in their life. They got a bunch of white-ass privilege, and yes, that's what I said, white-ass privilege, more privilege than I've ever had in my life. My mother lived in the projects in downtown Birmingham, Central City, next to the 2121 building. She had a 10th grade education. She ran away from the projects because she was tired of being poor and made fun of. My dad was from coal mining white trash in Beckley, West Virginia, and he quit school, and then he went, oh boy, I'm going to have to get in the coal mines if I don't go back. So he went back, and he joined the Air Force, and he was at A school learning how to be a dental tech when he met my mom. And that's how I got here. Okay? Do you hear what I'm saying to you? And you got upper middle class white kids. And I'll tell you what it is. I'll tell you, Terrell knows this. I taught at Fairfield High School, and I will never forget this. Because Kenyatta Webb told me this. Kiki said, she goes, Miss West, one day, black people are going to take over. You know that, don't you? And I said, okay. And she said, that's all right. You on a good white list. And that's what they're afraid of. So they are getting out there now trying to get on the good white list because they are afraid black people are going to take over. And they don't want to get their bleep beat and their bleep stolen. But then I was stupid. I made fun of Tupac. And Kiki said, hey, Miss West, remember that list I told you were on? Well, you fitting to get on the bad list. And that's what I learned. You don't make fun of Tupac. And I didn't. In fact, I told her I would wash her car in the afternoon. And I got back on the good list. You got to have a sense of humor, people. Wake up. Come on, folks. Wake up. Got to have a sense of humor, man. Come on. You got to have a sense of humor. I saw a video of a bunch of young, punky white kids surrounding an old white woman and sticking the Black Panther, Black Power salute in her face and demanding that she do the same thing to support Black Lives Matter. And the woman looked at him and she was like, I do support Black lives. And they were like, well, stick this up here like this. And she was like, well, no, I'm not going to do that. And they start screaming at her. And I just have to ask you a question. What the hell do those upper middle class white kids know about the Black Panthers? Not a damn thing. Come to think of it, neither do I, and neither do any of you white people in my class. Do you really think they need to be up there doing this stuff? Don't think so. And they sure as hell don't need to be burning down cities. How is that helping the black community? It's kind of like I told my 201 class. Who's in charge? Who's still trying to be in charge? White people. They're still trying to be in charge. What? I thought this was about black lives. Then why are white people still trying to be in charge of it? So, y'all, look. Neither political party has all the answers. And I'm going to flip it back over to the other side too, because I'm going to talk to the Trump supporters and I'm going to ask you a question. I understand that he's standing up for country, and I understand he's standing up for the flag, and I get it, because I don't think America's been perfect, but I think it's been a great good for the world. And I stand behind that, and I don't want the history of this country erased. I want us to go forward, because I think we've done more good in the world, way, way more good in the world. But I talk to lots of Christians, and I go to church, and I can't figure out how come Bill Clinton was evil, and Jerry Falwell said he was evil, and he had to go. But Donald Trump is just like Bill Clinton. Been divorced, cheated on his wife, had umpteen affairs. He's groped women too. But now I hear that he needs to be forgiven and given chances. But nobody was forgiving him back in the day, Bill Clinton. And if I'm not mistaken, Christians, most Christians I know don't support gay marriage, but Donald Trump does. But Christians, hands down, are voting for him. So I'm just asking. Bill Clinton did the Defense of Marriage Act. But all I heard was hateful venom about Bill Clinton, but I don't hear hateful venom about Donald Trump. So is it about the judges? Because it was about the judges for the Democrats. So is it about the judges for Republicans? Does it all boil down to it's just about the judges? And do we want the judges to decide things in our country? So that's just food for you to think about. Do we want the judges to decide things? Because if that's it, then how are Republicans any better than Democrats? Well, we are better because we're right and they're wrong. But that's what Democrats say. No, we're right and they're wrong. Are we saying that our nation should just be decided by who's in the White House, 50 senators, the vice president to break the tie, and 5 people on the Supreme Court? Because in case you hadn't figured it out, Justice Roberts is a party of one now. He said that DACA was okay because President Obama did an executive order, and if you hadn't figured that out, every president can use that now. You see, John Adams put a guy on the Supreme Court called John Marshall. And John Marshall actually took that right away when John Adams was John Adams was at home, but John Adams had signed an executive order saying it was okay for American ships to go after French boats when we were doing a quasi-war. And Justice Marshall said, no, you have to go to Congress and get War Powers Act. You can't just sign an executive order. And John Marshall did that in 1802 while John Adams was back in Peacefield in Massachusetts. And he established a precedent about executive orders. But Justice Roberts just... So, do we want a president that can just write stuff? Well, of course, if it's our guy, yeah. But if it's their guy, no. Well, don't get me wrong. I'll happily take any kind of tax cut I'll get, but really? This is Miss West asking questions. See how I do? I'm asking you questions. I'm going to attach 2 documents to this discussion because there's some things I want you to think about. The first document is going to be a picture of Taylor's Totem Pole of Talents. And there are 8 categories that Taylor talks about. And I'll let you read them. And the second one is going to be a page that talks about, it's going to be a website that has a rubric on it about universal learning. It's the way people learn. And I'm going to have a discussion that I'm going to open up on Tuesday. And I'll explain to you what both of them have in common. But the idea is, in a way and an effort to get you to communicate better with each other, I want you to look at Taylor's Totem Pole of Talents. And I want you to look at the 8 talents that he has. Because one's not just being academic and being smart. One is being creative, as in drawing or singing. One's being the ability to think on your feet, to think outside the box. One's being able to communicate your ideas. See, some people can communicate through a written word. Some people are better at communicating through, communicate orally. One of the gifts God has given me is that I can take maybe something that's really complex and I can break it down. My students all the time say to me, Miss West, break it down. And I can usually break something complex down. And my students have an appreciation for that. So there's that. One is strength. What I mean by that, it's combined with physical strength, but it's also the talent to not bend when society or pressure gets to you. That's a person that's a good group leader. When you've got a project due, that's the person that's like, hey, we got to get this done. And that's the person that says, you're going to do this, 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 and this. And they're the organizer of the group, and it's going to get done. And if somebody doesn't hold up his or her end, the group leader says, okay, well, you're not doing it. So guess what? I'm going to tell the teacher you didn't do it, and you're out because it's due day after tomorrow. You didn't do jack. And so I'm going to tell the teacher you didn't do jack, and I'm going to give it to this person and tell the teacher I did that, and they're going to get your points. So I gave you till today, and you didn't do it. Because this is college, it's not high school, and nobody's your boyfriend or your girlfriend here. Okay? Thank you. That's how that works. So there's these different 8 ways and 8 hidden talents. And I want you to look at that, and then I want you to look at these universal learning aptitudes. And I want you, and I'll write this out, but I want you to be able to pick out which talent you have, or if you have a couple of them, and then these 3 different ways that we learn, how we express what we've learned, and how we engage each other. And I want us to do better going forward in this class in engaging in the discussions, how we learn. I want you to be able to explain that to other students, explain it to me, and maybe for the first time, if you understand what type of learner you are or how you engage. And I'll put up not only the totem pole, but I'll put up how Taylor describes each talent so that you can see it. When I taught middle school and high school, I always figured out everybody's talent in the classroom so that I could try to hone in and give somebody some kind of project a couple of times a year that was in their talent range to help them with their grades. And I want you to try and figure out what your talent is, whatever that gift is that you have, so that you can communicate it with your classmates and communicate it to me. And then let's look at those universal learning aptitudes so that we can better engage each other and engage in the classroom. Okay? As always, I wish you peace and blessings. And as always, I pray for you, and I pray that God can heal this land, because He is the only one that can heal this land.